Okay, great. Okay, cool. Well, thank you all for joining. I will go ahead and get started, and maybe we can just let people in if they also join, but I do think this is going to be a small group anyway. So we just wanted to talk about how to get going with some of these electric vehicle ownership groups we've been talking about. And what we actually decided is we're going to call them chapters. That feels like a little easier to say than uh, just a shorter thing to say. So Drive Electric Chapter Leadership Info Session is today. And I will get going. Okay. So this is the purpose of the Drive Electric USA program, which this is one of the tasks that we have been tasked with. So the purpose of the Drive Electric USA is to break down the barriers to accelerating EV education and awareness, engagement, and adoption. And we're building statewide successful efforts to accelerate the purchase of and use of EVs of all sizes by general citizens as well as fleets. I think that was important for me to add in here because I think I've been focused on just consumers, but we are also working on fleets as well. So for our meeting today, we're going to just talk through the chapter development. So what is the Drive Electric chapter? What will they do and why? How to get started, and some suggested programming for just kind of the near future here, May through October, because that's kind of our window really to do programming, considering the weather. Though I guess we could do a winter one just so people can be aware that EVs still work in the winter, but that's kind of what we're looking toward here. So what is the Drive Electric chapter? So it's an active, organized group of EV owners and supporters within a community. And the chapters are made up of volunteers with a core leadership team of 2 to 6 leaders. I think some of these other Drive Electric groups, like Tennessee or Colorado, they're based in cities, so they have a lot of people to choose from. I can't really see us having more than 2 to 3 core leadership team members, but if there's 6, that's great. And so these will be supported by us in our work in the Drive Electric campaign, but we do see the chapters kind of working autonomously. So we're not telling you what to do. It's when you meet and what kind of events you want to offer is based on what the needs are of your community and what you all feel comfortable with. And so what will Drive Electric chapters do? Oh, this is a picture of Bailey and I at our most recent eco fair that we had here in Jackson. Was that just not last weekend, but the weekend before? So direct consumer education, and this looks like EV ride and drives or EV showcases. And these events can be offered for the general public, or they can be located at workplaces, as well as just more informal consumer education, such as doing an event or gathering within your neighborhood, talking with friends, family, and maybe you're a part of a club or something and just doing outreach there as well. And the chapters can also do outreach and education directly with policymakers or government officials. I think a good example is Kevin mentioned how he brought your Tesla over to the town of Jackson Police Department. Is that correct? Or you were going to show them your autonomous features. So
I went to both the Jackson Police Department and the Sheriff's Department for the county, Teton County, but the chief of police was away for the week, so I need to go back and try to recontact her.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hoping that they'd be interested in the Ford Mustang EV is currently offered as a police package and has been certified. And Anaheim Police Department in California is using Tesla. I'm not sure, I think it's Model Ys in their department, but that hasn't been certified, but a number of departments have used it. So trying to encourage them to look at alternatives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a perfect example of what members and leaders of Drive Electric chapters can work on. And YTCC, we can provide additional materials or support if you want to chat through different facts or information about EVs beforehand. But otherwise, whatever you're comfortable with.
Alicia, can I jump in and ask Kevin? Kevin, did you get any progress with the sheriff? Because he purchases his own vehicles, and I would love to. I've been asking in my job responsibility, but haven't really gotten anywhere. So,
he said his phrase, "We're not quite there yet," and I don't know if he meant the vehicle. Well, I think he meant the vehicles aren't quite there yet, and they're not ready to jump in. But honestly, I just think they haven't looked at it close enough because the Michigan State Police and LA County Sheriff and LA Police Department all do testing, and the Mustang EV outperformed all the sedans that they had. So there's no reason not to use them, particularly in the LA area, but even in winter. Oh, he did say because they go on dirt roads in the county, they need something with better ground clearance. But like anything, you don't have all your vehicles of one type. It's not all pickups or sedans or SUVs.
No, I appreciate the background. I'm working on breaking EVs into more county markets. So getting the feedback on what you heard will help keep me from repeating myself and know what angles to kind of take. So appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think that is a good reminder too, that even though all of the EV owners groups or the chapters will be operating autonomously, it will be helpful for us to maybe have another meeting like this kind of partway through the summer, after people have done some outreach, whether that's an event or otherwise, like what Kevin was just talking about, to kind of touch base so we're all aware of who's talking to who. We can even just do that via email as well, but just to be in communication with each other, to not be redundant and to learn from one another too. And then also, direct outreach to policymakers and government officials and staff, as well as engage in the community in a variety of ways to share their expertise and enthusiasm towards electric vehicles. And that could just be, maybe you wanted to write an op-ed, or organize other types of meetings within the community as well, or whatever you feel comfortable with. So that is what the Drive Electric chapters will and can do. And just backing up a little bit, talk about why. So the best EV salesperson is an EV owner. They have the enthusiasm, expertise, and lived experiences needed to answer a lot of the FAQs that we hear, as well as quell common misconceptions, or kind of just talk through the common misconceptions. Some are true, and just talking through how you navigate that as an EV owner and driver that is operating within our region. Almost 85% of all vehicle buyers, they test drive a vehicle first. So offering EV ride and drives is useful, so folks can actually get in EV. For the longest time, many of our dealerships didn't even have any EVs on the lot. That's not the case anymore. There does seem to be more and more options, but it isn't always the case that they have the variety of options that are out there. So historically, there have not been a variety of electric vehicles in the lot, particularly in rural areas. According to a survey from Autolist, hearing from someone you trust about a car has the highest impact of a vehicle purchase, more so than anything else. So even though they spend lots of money on those Super Bowl ads, it may not be the biggest factor that somebody takes into account when they're making their vehicle purchase. And then I'm realizing we need to update this now, but according to a survey that we conducted in 2020, our stakeholders prefer to hear about vehicles from their friends and family. So that came in highest of who they receive their information from when making their vehicle purchases. So EV owners and friends and family, we have a lot of influence over those who are closest to us in their vehicle purchases. And I think about that just for anything, like when I'm purchasing even smaller things or bikes or whatnot, you generally always kind of just reach out and understand what your friends or neighbors are doing. So it does make a lot of sense. So as the current folks that have that are here, as well as have just volunteered, in our past meetings. So Bozeman, Jesse, and Paul have mentioned that they'll work together. In Jackson, we have Kevin, Eric, and myself. Fremont County, Patrick, Natrona County, Dan, Idaho Falls, Basil, and then Missoula, Devin had mentioned that he was working on that. I think they're working on that at the city level too. And then Basil, you said that you've made some good progress in Idaho Falls with some of your friends, or? I don't know if you're talking.
Yeah, I made some
okay.
progress sending out all the information to probably 30 people. I've only had a few respond, but some of them are pretty serious, I believe. I also became aware that Stephanie Walsh is engaged in a statewide EV working group that I didn't even know about. And she says she'll participate. So it's funny, I'm finding a lot of EV owners that I know just kind of don't want to be bothered. But I think once they see more of what, that this isn't a burden, just keep them informed. Hopefully some of them will, they're going to be on the list in any case. And then, they'll have to kind of unsubscribe because they all know me. So if they want to say, don't send me any more emails, I won't. But we'll kind of have an informal roster of EV owners plus a bunch of EV owners that have definitely expressed an interest in the working group or the chapter, excuse me.
Well done reaching out to that many folks. And yeah, thank you for connecting me with Stephanie. She mentioned she's worked with Randy or Treasure Valley, but I haven't met her before. So that will be a good connection.
Good. So you had a chance to talk to her then, huh?
I haven't, just the emails, but yeah, I guess she, but I hope we can schedule an actual meeting. Okay, so how to get started? I think that the first step would just be set an initial meeting with the leadership team, kind of talk through what schedule, what events are kind of coming up, what types of events you want to collectively work together on prior to calling an entire chapter meeting. So, but I think then setting an initial kickoff meeting for your chapter will be good. So that would just be inviting EV owners in your community to come join this EV owner chapter. Make it fun, have refreshments, make it social. So at the kickoff meeting, based on kind of that initial leadership team meeting where you've identified some of the types of events that you want to host and kind of the timing of those, at the kickoff meeting, then you can kind of throw those suggestions out there and make sure that that also works with the folks that are the EV owners that will be bringing their EVs to these events. And then additionally at the kickoff meeting, kind of provide some suggestions on, like we had mentioned, with the outreach with family and friends. And then you can equip some of the EV owners with materials as available. So we'll hopefully be sharing out some fact sheets, and as mentioned on our last call, like windshield cards, and we'll be ordering and some of the materials that I think you saw on the previous slide here. We did get Drive Electric Wyoming feather flags, so we need to get some more of those for Wyoming as well as Montana if we like those, and additional materials as well, and then have fun. So this is kind of just how to get going. And so Kevin and Eric, for our Jackson one, I feel like if we can meet maybe next week or something, and then we can kind of get some things on the calendar.
Sure.
So oh, go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, I was just agreeing with you.
Okay, great. Okay, so suggested programming. Host just, a couple of gatherings, and these can be, you can add on to existing events such as farmers markets or eco fair events, whatever that looks like in your community. Provide refreshments, and we'll have to figure out in our budget what we can, refund up to. My sharing kind of keeps getting, I don't know what's going on there, but okay, I'm back. We'll have to figure out an exact amount, but probably per, public outreach event, we have an amount that we'll be able to reimburse you for. And then you could keep it informal, but then just like drive around the block or parking lot. Maybe it's an EV showcase where there's not driving and it's just the vehicles are there, and you're talking about it. Or maybe it's a mixture of both, depending on what the EV owner feels comfortable with. And then, there's obviously like farmers markets or formal events, but also there's informal social group ideas that you could do, whether it's a book club, a church small group, sports team, neighborhood. Just gather up a group of your friends for a potluck, or bringing it to your office, or scheduling some ride and drives or events with other offices. So those are just some examples, and it doesn't have to end there. And then National Drive Electric Week is definitely a time that we'll want to do a lot of outreach. So that's September 27th through October 6th this year. So hosting either EV ride and drives or showcases, maybe an EV parade. In the past, what we've done with our EV experience vehicle, we have had the Chevrolet Bolt, but we scheduled ride and drives with workplaces. And so each day we went to different, like one or two different offices, and did ride and drives with the employees there. And then usually we'd have at least one or two that was kind of open to the public. And as we've discussed on previous calls, maybe focus on some of the larger employers that have commuters, since we've identified that as a good group that can really benefit from driving electric. Oops. A friend's EV drive. So you can this can be impromptu or scheduled. I know Jesse's always been really good about that, mentioning that, you're at the hockey rink and somebody asks you a question about your EV, and then you go out in the parking lot and give them a drive, or they drive or whatever. So it's whatever makes sense for you, or whatever you're comfortable with. So you can be in the car, or you can just let them take your vehicle, whatever, they're a friend. And we've talked about, though, actually collecting information about this. So providing a follow-up survey. Hope it'll probably be in the form of like a Google form. So it's just a link, and probably very simple information, name, email, and like have you driven an EV before? What was your thoughts? And what other information do you want or need, or something along those lines. But we'll get that situated and sent out to folks too, so that we can, as we do this outreach, that we're actually getting data from it as well. And some more suggestions here. So EV drive ideas. So pick them up and drive to a public charging station. So downtown Jackson, there's Teton Village, Signal Mountain, Walmart, Idaho Falls Power, RSV Motel, maybe, I don't know. We haven't checked in if that one's still working. Bozeman, Big Sky. Let them drive your EV on the way to a hike that you're going to do together, drive through and get coffee, or let them borrow it to run some errands, so they kind of can just see what it's like to drive around in their community. And what are some of the things that you might want to share while you're hosting these events, or just meeting with friends, is why you drive electric, why you chose the particular car that you did, what you like most about it, what your experience buying the vehicle was, because that's kind of tricky sometimes when finding the right dealership, the right person, the right salesperson, finding the car. Like, many of you all have ordered them or had them shipped from a different state. So just kind of talking through the logistics, and maybe you can help them figure that out for whatever vehicle it is they're specifically looking for. Any financial savings you've noticed on your fuel costs, and how it works with your lifestyle. Like, maybe you have a camper in the summer, so you drive your electric vehicle, for work throughout the majority of the year, but then you actually have a truck that pulls your camper, and that still works for your family. So that sort of thing. And this is my dog, Gus. He looks so young in this photo, but he's sitting in the back of my Volt. And I think I don't know why that slide is there, but that is the whole presentation. So I will stop the share. Cool. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions? I know some of you are pretty well versed in doing this sort of thing, like Jesse and Patrick. I know you all do lots of letting friends and ride and drives and that sort of thing. So if anybody wants to add anything now, that'd be
Do you
great.
want us to report on how many people we've had drive now? It's like you're right. A lot of us have already done that.
Yeah, I mean, sure. If you've been doing some drives recently, I can figure out, I mean, you could just email me that information, or we could try to figure out some sort of reporting form. But yeah, we definitely want to capture the information about how many drives and rides and people you've talked to and information you've shared.
I think if we set up a Google form, that would be easy and have everybody's information in one spot for us.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to know what, and I can make it. I just need to know what questions we want to ask or information we want to gather.
I think maybe we'll need to look back at the Drive Electric USA requirements, so we can work on that internally and get that set. Maybe at our staff meeting today, we can talk through that. Set the Google form, but then maybe just like another way to capture a lot of data. Like if Basil, you've done several, so kind of catch up on what you've done recently, and then moving forward, do the Google form.
You mentioned a survey to be given to the people that we give test drives to. Is that part of the Drive Electric or the Drive Electric program? So you,
yeah, that'd be just the form. I don't know if they've given us a template for that, but we'll look to see if they do, if they have, and we'll just make one up that makes sense for us for the information that we want to capture.
I think one of the other things that would be important to do is to be very honest with not only what we really like about the vehicle that we drive, but also what we don't like. And for instance, the Tesla I have, the touchscreen is nice in some ways, but it's really hard to be paying attention to the touchscreen when you're driving down the road and trying to hit a certain button or control rather than physical controls. And so, you know, letting people know those things, I think it also increases the trust they have in you and, you know, what you're relaying to them. I mean, overall, I love having an electric vehicle, but there are some negative sides to my particular vehicle, and I'm sure there are to almost every vehicle.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to certainly share that rather than just being so pro EV all the way without those other considerations. I think we're just like a nice mix, EV owners, because as far as I know, a lot of the sales experiences that people have had at dealerships, they don't necessarily have the information, or they're kind of doing the opposite. They're not just like, they're not pushing EVs at all. So,
you know, when I sent this note out about this meeting and invited people, I attached that worksheet I'd had about 4,000 miles of driving over 2 months with, you know, all the charges, all the miles, what the estimates were, what the real range was. But I don't know whether that's a good thing to keep up or not. I mean, I thought people might be interested in it as a factual representation of what that particular vehicle did, but I haven't had any feedback on it. And I don't know if it's really worth keeping up or not. I know, Jesse, one of the most valuable things you gave us was a couple of meetings ago when you described your trip down to Boise. I mean, it was a real descriptive, down-to-earth thing that you could see what, you know, it helped influence us in terms of buying an electric vehicle. But, you know, this other stuff is more detailed. It's like every charge, where was it? You know, was it a good charge? Was it a bad, you know, was the charger working? What city was it? And then maybe a little picture of the city. But, you know, that may be overkill. I don't know. I'm searching for opinions.
I think having maybe a 1 month snapshot, regardless of the month, as long as it's sort of recent, would show people in the month, here's how many miles I drove, here are the 2 trips I took, here's the chargers I went to, and then show them the electricity costs where you are and how often you charged, and just a 1 month snapshot. And if you want to update it in 6 months, do that. But I think that's good to show people everything that is involved in owning EV for a month or something.
I also
like.
Go ahead, Alicia.
No, go. I'm talking already.
I also think that other than like all the charging and all the months, because I assume that you're not taking long road trips every week in the car, showing what that, what when I talk to people about my car, that I mostly talk about two different trips and specific trips. And so I talk about the one time that I drove up, well, three trips, I guess. The one time I drove up to Glacier, there's literally no charging between here and there. And my car got the range that it was advertised to get. All the trips that we've taken down to Yellowstone and how easy it is to get in and out of the north entrance. The west entrance is a little bit harder with a non-Tesla. And then also my trips out to the Oregon coast. And like so what I may start doing, I don't know when I'm going out to Oregon again, but like flat, keeping a better log of, when I stop at a charger, like how fast it ends up being, and if I had any problems. I think giving specific stories might be a better way of conveying information. Because when I look at the sheet that you sent, Natalie and I was trying to get out of there like, all right, was this just like him charging up when he was around town? This was a short charge, this is a longer charge, this is level 2, this was DC. That's kind of my thought is I like to tell the story to give them as much specifics on that as I can instead of and but yeah, also being honest about like what I think I don't remember if it was Dan or Kevin said. Being honest, I do try and do that. Like when I'm talking about school buses, I'm very clear saying this is not what you take the state team to the football championships in. This is not the bus for that. And I think people appreciate that honesty because they think that I'm trying to sell them that this bus can replace all their diesels. And I know that's not the case.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Basil, the information that you're keeping is useful to support those stories. So I think I would, if you don't mind continuing to do it, I think that's helpful because it's as opposed to just saying like, oh, it's easy to drive around or this is impossible. Like you have the data to back it up, and you can, like Jesse suggested, doing a month snapshot or like some of the frequent regional trips that people take, maybe highlight that. Like I like that Neil does is the trips to the national parks. I think that's something people are interested in understanding what that looks like. Is it possible? So just kind of using all that deep data to make some high level storyline. So maybe we can, as a coalition, pull some of your info and make it into kind of just like a couple fact sheets or something, or handouts that others can, easily share, talking with people or hand out to folks. But I'm glad that you're doing that.
Well, that's a good feedback because I'm going to do it for 1 year anyway, just so I can track my battery performance. But I think that, like Neil said, cool. Maybe to distill that information down so it's a little less ponderous, and just highlight a certain trip. For example, at the lab, we have so many people driving their private vehicles 50 miles out in the desert and back every day. I mean, that's a perfect thing if you bought an electric vehicle to do. Right? You'd cut your fuel costs down by 80% out there. So maybe just highlight some specific trips, like you said.
I think it'd be fun for us as a group even to have something where for maybe 2 weeks we all put down how many miles we've driven EV or hybrid daily, and input when you charge and how much you charged. And then we could have this is a pretty wide reaching snapshot that would show all the different terrains. Some people drive more than others. I know I charge like once a week or maybe once every week and a half in our car, and I don't know how many miles we drive, probably 20 or 30 a day. But you guys might be very different. It'd be cool. We could graph it all. We could show the different vehicles, the different travel times, distances, and that kind of thing.
Do you guys, either Jesse or Basil, do you guys have well, I mean, I have Basil's, but Jesse, do you have something where you keep track of that? I never have. I just keep it in my head, which is not great.
No, I don't track anything.
Okay, well, maybe Basil will try and adapt your form so we can get more of an apples to apples comparison. So when Basil shows off his data and I show off mine, that people generally are seeing the same thing. I can try and do a better job of keeping track of that.
Well, I don't want to, I'd be showing off in some cases where I only got 50% of the estimated range, But on the other hand, from Edwards, Colorado to Fort Collins, I got 200% of range, over 200% of range. So, but that's the reality of it, and that's useful for people to see. But yeah, I'll be happy to. Go ahead.
I got less than half the advertised range on my truck driving back from North Dakota 2 days ago. I was getting 9 miles per gallon. It's advertised at 23.
Good point, Jesse.
Yeah.
I kept good track of the information on that trip.
It might be good to have some information on like mountain passes. I actually kept track of what I was getting going over Togety a couple weeks ago. And so like just having like specifically like that, like this is what you lose going up, but this is what you get going down kind of situation. So, I found that it wasn't very different than driving flat if you started and ended at the same elevation in the end. But like
it's a good point, Eric. I did the same thing going up and down Togety, and it's remarkable. And now I know that if I'm in trouble somewhere, I can count on pretty much what that percentage is going to be.
Yeah,
because you know what the passes are, you know when it's windy, and you know when it's cold.
And I think that just having kind of those specific use cases, like not just like I think the Yellowstone trip that was mentioned by Neil, and like your trips and a mountain pass. So people like specific scenarios in addition to having like this is what it looks like to drive an EV for a month with just regular driving, like might be kind of cool.
I think that's one of the other things that we need to focus on. I mean, we all have an idea of what the vehicles we drive do for us. But what a lot of people don't understand, I mean, we all assume there's a gas station around the next town. And so you don't worry about it. But you can't make that same assumption about a charger. I just went to Sun Valley this past weekend with my wife and had 2 bikes on the back. The bikes on the back and the high winds we had over the weekend were really hard getting out there. And there's no superchargers beyond. I went from Idaho Falls through Arco and up that way. And Arco had some fast charges, but they didn't show up in PlugShare. So you've got all these other variables that you're trying to figure out. How do I get to Sun Valley, spend some time there, do some biking, and turn around and come back? And so those experiences, and it worked out fine. There were more options than I realized, but no one, Tesla certainly doesn't tell you where all the non-Tesla charges are. And so you go to PlugShare or you go to Google and Google EVs and stuff. So those experiences I think are really important, especially in these early stages of EV adoption. I mean, maybe in 5 or 10 years, they'll be more ubiquitous like gas stations. But for now, it's something you have to think about and plan for.
I'm surprised you didn't see Arco's charger and PlugShare. I wonder if you had a setting just unselected or something.
Yeah, I checked a couple times and I couldn't get it to show up. I actually used a CCS adapter, and it worked great. It was fine. But I didn't see it in PlugShare. As a matter of fact, I was thinking checking again, and if I don't see it, to try to contact PlugShare and tell them to add it.
It's there. I'm looking at it now.
Oh, that's funny.
The main picture is me charging my car.
Maybe it filtered because you have a Tesla or something.
Or because you have charging speeds filtered, maybe.
I bet I did something wrong with the filtering.
Yeah, it's definitely there.
Yeah, there's one there, and also in Haley, there's a fast charger. We didn't use that one, but we used a slow charger overnight in Ketchum, and that helped out too.
Is that your camper, Patrick? Oh, sorry, Basil.
Yeah. No, that's all right. Go ahead, Alicia. I'll add on.
Patrick just posted a photo in chat of his Cybertruck pulling a camper.
Mountain passes. I took my Cybertruck with a 11,000-pound fully loaded 32-foot camper over to God. Work on the charging station. And it used about almost 100% of the battery, about 95% of the battery between Riverton and Du Bois. We had 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts. It was crazy windy, and it was up elevation about a mile between here and there. On the way back, half of the battery. So just, things to think about. So yeah, just interesting.
So did it cut your range in half essentially?
Yeah, it cuts your range in half. Well, with this camper is a little bit more. Yeah, because it used almost the full battery to go up there. There's about a 310-mile range, but I only got about 100. So, but on the way back, it was about in half.
I recently pulled an A-liner from Riverton to Du Bois, and it just about 1,500 pounds with my ID4, and it was about half, even going uphill. But the weather was good though. I didn't have wind.
Yeah, I think if there wasn't wind, it would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
Also, proper inflation on the tires. I did that on the way back. The rating was supposed to you're supposed to put an extra 10 psi on the back tires, is what the manual was saying, and it sure did. It seemed to help.
Kevin, I want to make a comment on your Sun Valley trip because it's kind of a unique plus for Sun Valley. If you stay at the Limelight, they have level 2 charging in the garage, which is free, but also they will loan you an Audi e-tron to test drive while you're there. I mean, some of these hotels are doing, they're kind of going the extra mile to attract people. I don't know what kind of deal they have with Audi, but it was pretty nice. You take your EV to the Limelight, you let it charge, and then they give you a different EV to go to dinner. But
I've charged there before, many years ago.
That's good to know.
I mean, it's on their website, that you could borrow these Audi cars. It doesn't have to be an EV. You can also borrow a gas one, but it's just kind of an unusual feature that I think people don't realize that is there if they want to use it.
That'd be an interesting partnership idea. Like if we can get one of the hotels in town to do some kind of a loaner for guests.
So I have a couple.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Not to go too off topic, but you were talking about statistics, and I just had some really interesting ones from the Turo rentals. This year we've had 133-day rentals, 16 different people. 2 of them took them on long trips and decided they're going to buy EVs, and one of the long-term rental guys already bought one. So we've got 3 people converted, and it's been really cool. A lot of people in the long-term driving, they're like sold. So if we can actually get people behind the wheel of one for an extended time, yeah, it really seems to sell people.
Those are great stats to have. That's a good conversion rate. 16 people. What did you say? Say that again. 16 different people.
One's purchased already, and 2 others are working on it. One's got a loan, and the other one's trying to figure out how to buy one. And then the other people, I don't know if they're going to buy them or not, but they were really happy when they drove them from out of town. They just flew in. But the other 3 people are local, and all 3 of them are buying EVs.
That's great. We're putting out a survey for our EV experience program with the Bolt that just ended, and so far, like as of last October, we know 7 people bought electric vehicles after participating in the program, but we're a few months out still. So I think that survey was supposed to go out this morning, actually. So, but yeah, it's really good info to understand and know, like, what is the biggest factor, what did they need before they purchased it, and a lot of people just like experiencing it and driving it for an extended period of time.
The other thing about the people that took the long trips to Denver and to Elko, Nevada, they noted that even it was like $120 for the charging, it was still cheaper than taking their personal vehicle and paying for the gas to rent the EV and pay for the public charging. That their total trip is less expensive, so they're going to keep doing that when they go on long trips. They're going to rent an EV, take it, which is the opposite of what everybody else is saying. Well, you need a gas car to take long trips.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of amusing.
I looked it up once coming down to Jackson maybe a year and a half ago. I don't think I had an EV at the time, but 67 cent per mile federal reimbursement rate ends up costing more than just renting a Tesla and driving it there.
True.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something else I saw that this group might be interested in. There's a travel trailer called a Pebble Flow, Pebble like little rock flow. And I was at the LA Auto Show in November and actually saw one, and it's pretty incredible. It's self-motorized, I wouldn't say self-driving, but it's got its own motor and electric battery. And so it powers itself down the road. So you're not taken away from the tow vehicle range. And it's supposedly, they're taking orders now. I think it's supposed to be ready in the fall. It's pretty expensive. It's about 125,000. But it's got all kinds of electric features on it. The bathroom has clear glass, which you'd think that's not a very good idea for a bathroom, on the wall, but it's got one of those switches where you flip the switch and it goes opaque. Pretty impressive, but if you get a chance to look it up online, it's a Pebble Flow. And
yeah, there's at least 3 companies doing those.
What's that?
Pebble, there's a Lightyear one, or is it Lightyear one?
Yeah, that's the other one.
Yeah, and they're out of Broomfield, Colorado, and they just had their grand opening of their factory this Friday. And then there's another one just announced. They called it a Cyber Camper. It looks like a Cybertruck. Not affiliated with Tesla, other than they are trying to be. But the same concept. Powered axles, battery on board, so it doesn't take from your range. You can charge them up when you charge your vehicle. Then when you're disconnected, you've got tons of power. They all have solar panels on them.
Outrageously expensive that
all over $100,000. I'm personally trying to figure out how to do one myself. I think I could get by with just converting one for significantly less.
Yeah, I was thinking that this past week too, and I've thought about it many times. They just need to sell a kit that has an axle, 2 hubs, motors,
well, I'm thinking
and an
you
axle.
could take an old Leaf or something, for a couple grand and rip it apart and toss it in there, and you can make it happen. Fun project.
All right. Well, if you start getting more serious, reach out and I'll partner with you on it.
All right, cool.
Maybe this is an idea for one of those energy prize things that the DOE has.
I wonder if those other 3 companies are doing it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this all sounds great. I think what I'm going to do too, because I'm liking all of these ideas of various, like month data, trip data, specific use case data. I'll reach out to each of you individually to ask like specific questions, so then we can kind of put it into some sort of case study format that we can then put into, I shared a Google Drive or Google folder with everybody, and we'll start just having a folder there with Drive Electric resources that we can all pull from and use and reference and refer and print off or whatever we want to do with them. But I think kind of building up this library of information that we have such a wealth of information among just this group here, and we can add even more to that, but start being able to just like aggregate all that so we can use it. And then how do people feel then, talking through the chapter today with that presentation moving forward? Or does everyone feel all right with kind of taking the next step to just initiate the leadership team meeting and then kind of scheduling out some things, or at least having, like, I guess Drive Electric Week isn't until the end of September, but just how do people feel moving forward? Are we in good shape? Do you need more stuff? Okay, cool. Well, we'll follow up too after our staff meeting once we have that form settled, so that folks can also start just we can start aggregating information from just friend drives and that sort of thing as well. But well, good. This felt like a fun conversation. Thanks, everyone.
I had one other thing. I wanted to thank Jesse. He sent some articles on winter driving, and there's an incredible article that he sent to me on the Nissan, I think it was Area, Jesse, that did a pole to pole trip. Now, obviously across the water, they had to take ferries and things like that. But the fact that the first vehicle that went from pole to pole, and having articles like that are kind of exciting and available at some point on our site that people can go to and learn about winter driving and learn about a particular vehicle, I think would be very helpful. And thank you, Jesse, for sending those.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have seen that. It was big publicity when it first happened. The thing I thought was cool is just that it's a stock, other than the tires and a few mods, body mods, it's a stock battery, and that's amazing.
And the other thing, they towed their own windmill behind on a trailer, and I wish they had more details on that, because it was pretty fascinating that they could use that on the Antarctic ice and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we can share that with the whole group too, so everybody can be on the same page.
It's everywhere. Right, pole to pole EV. It'll come up from 15 different news outlets.
Sounds good. All right. Well, we'll be in touch then via email about resources and such, and then we'll still have our regular monthly meeting with everybody coming up as well. I should have had that date on the top of my mind, but you'll get an email reminder. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. See you.